Welcome back to the Clinic Scale podcast, the show where we pull back the curtain on what it really takes to build a thriving, profitable clinic that serves your community and supports your freedom. Today's guest is someone who means a lot to me personally. Not only is he an incredible chiropractor and clinic director, but he's also an old mate. We went to the same secondary school in Dorset. We've coached together, we've worked on ideas together. Dr. Patrick Hogg is the Director and Doctor of Chiropractic at CompleteHealth Eastbourne. Patrick is one of those rare people who blends clinical mastery with business leadership in a way that actually works. His early encouragement when I opened my first clinic played a huge role in shaping my journey. Without it, my path could have looked very different. Patrick has built a high-performing clinic, leads a strong team, produces consistent content, and remains hands-on as a clinician. Today, we're going to dig deep on what it really takes to go from skilled clinician to true business leader, the mindset shifts needed, the mistakes learned, and how to stay consistent in a noisy world. You're going to get practical insights you can apply immediately. So grab a notepad, settle in, and let's jump right in. Patrick, welcome to the podcast. Let's get things straight off the bat with your origin story. How did you get into chiropractic?
Well, firstly, thank you for the introduction. It always feels really cringy hearing that back, but it's always nice to hear that you've had an influence in someone's life and their journey. Um, where did I start? It's always a really interesting question. Um, I think a lot of people talk about chiropractic, and in my experience, I somewhat feel a little bit of a kind of phony or charlatan or bit imposter because I didn't have one of these profound experiences where I found chiropractic through a personal experience. I just knew that when I was studying at college, I wanted to go into something revolving around health. And ironically, I kind of searched out different career choices, things like physio, PT. I'd even considered medicine. And Christ Almighty, I'm so glad that I didn't go down any of those routes because it certainly wouldn't have given me the freedom that I had now. But I think I've always been a bit of a grafter, and I'll always have something that kind of jogs back in my memory. So I used to work in a pet shop when I was about 15, and I used to work for about £3.25 an hour. It was like £20 a week, and it was just one of those things that I'd gone into that job with the intention of I had a goal that I wanted to buy my own first bike. I come from a big family. I was one of five kids. My parents couldn't afford like decent, expensive things like that. And so, I'd set my goal and target. And I remember paying the money in from the pet shop. So I used to run the money down from the shop to the bank. And I remember someone leaning over to me and saying to me, he said, I don't know you and I don't know what you're going to do, but whatever you do, stick with it because you're going to do really well. And this guy just walked off. And I had no idea why or what prompted it. And the girl behind the counter told me he was a fortune teller. And I was like, okay, so whatever it is I find, I've now got to stick with it because that's going to be what I'm good at. And ironically, when I was looking at the physiotherapy courses on UCAS, ironically, the chiropractic course came up. And you may or may not know this. My mum was really sick when I was at college. She was diagnosed with a bowel tumor. And so I was looking for courses that I could potentially do closer to home. And I found that there was a chiropractic school literally up the road. And I went around the college, and I think the guide showed me around the Aztec class, and there was, you know, just this insight of being able to see myself in that college for the next 5 years. And I think I think I read a book, The Vital Truth, and I was like, oh my God, this stuff sounds amazing. Like, why on earth does nobody ever talk about this profession? Like, why is it so unheard of? And I guess I just read a little bit deeper, and I actually worked with someone. I worked in a leisure centre whilst I was once I was at college, and there was a guy that was just finishing his studies that worked there, and I went and observed him for a day, and he was just seeing so many people come in and out of his office, and I was like, dude, I've got to get involved with this. Like, whatever this is, everyone's coming in happy. like everyone's feeling better. I was like, whatever this is, I got to do this. And that's pretty much where it kind of all pretty much all started from.
Wow, what a story. Um,
It's a weird one, huh?
it is, but it's always interesting to hear how people first got into chiropractic because a lot of the time they're like, I saw a chiropractor, it changed my life, and then I decided I was going to do it. It's what you hear most of the time. Um, but actually, I had a similar route to you. I knew that I wanted to help people. I heard about how cool chiropractic was. I had actually never seen a chiropractor before I started studying chiropractic. So I knew what the mission was. I wanted to be on that mission, and that's how I got into it. But
I
thank you
think
for
the other blessing was, I think
yeah,
the other blessing was is the employment rates when you came out. When I was looking at the differences in employment rates between chiropractors and other professionals, I was like, this is a no-brainer.
absolutely, absolutely. Certainly, when you graduated before I did, but certainly I know when we graduated, there was definitely more demand for chiropractors than there was supply. So we kind of had a pick of clinics that we could work at. And I don't, I know it's changing slightly because there's so many more universities producing chiropractors now. Obviously, there's shorter courses available. So I think that demand supply is going to change. But I mean, that's great for business owners. It means that we've got loads of choice. Um, but what will it do with the profession? Will it filter down what we do? I don't know. We'll explore that later. Um, so in terms of what you were saying to me before when you're explaining your story, it's almost like you had this epiphany. As soon as you read that book, you had this epiphany like, this is what I want to do. So it kind of takes it from, I'm just going to find a job, a career that I might enjoy. You've actually kind of discovered that there's a mission. So you've had this epiphany that there's a bigger mission, a bigger purpose here. Was there really like a clear defining point where you felt like this is the one thing I want to do for my career?
Yeah, solid question. No, no. I think for me, I've always been very health orientated. Um, even as a young kid, like my food choices were gravitated away from processed foods as a general rule of thumb, or majority unprocessed foods. I've always been interested in exercise and like I say, good nutrition and decent lifestyles, being fit, being healthy, and that kind of grew uh, like through my kind of teenage and into adult life. I've always had that drive to do with health, and I think when I started reading around the courses, I don't think there's any one thing. I just think as I've gone along, things have slowly just solidified that opinion. That first client that you get that walks through the door with their phone of them taking their kids down the slide, or, you know, like that person that comes in and says, that bowel issue that I've had for the last 15 years is finally cleared up. Or like the most extreme one that I've had this year, that a chronic long-term depressive anxiety, hypertensive, diabetic, no energy, can't work, has completely resolved all their symptoms within a year. So hypertension has dropped, diabetes has disappeared. They're even getting to this person's a previous domestic violence case, and she's now at the point that she's feeling comfortable to start returning into relationships and work again. But when you
Amazing.
start seeing
So
when
so
you
cool.
start seeing those miracles in your office, I don't think that there's necessarily a singular epiphany, but you just as time goes on, that certainty just goes up and up and up in what you do, and it's still growing. It's still growing.
So you just mentioned the word miracles in the office, and I've just done our appraisals with our Cairo team. And one of the questions we asked is, tell us about what miracles you've seen in the last 3 months. And it's amazing to see what they come up with and what they consider a miracle versus what someone else would consider a miracle with chiropractic. And one of them actually, and if I be totally honest with you, one of them really said, I really struggled with this question. I was like, what do you mean by miracles? I was like, we're just not fixing backs. I was like, okay, so there's a philosophy issue here. If you're not finding any miracles, you've actually got to look for those miracles as well, and you have to create those miracles. How would you say going slightly off topic, I mean, how would you say someone can create those miracles? Or is it just keeping your eyes open or asking the right questions to dig deep into what's really changing in their lives?
Yeah. Uh, I mean, measurable. Um, and I think, from what I've learned, uh, less is definitely more. I think we get stuck in this rut of trying to do more to get more. And I think the other thing is as well is, where are your boundaries of where a miracle is? If someone hasn't been able to tie their shoelaces for 6 months, tying your shoelaces after 6 sessions is a miracle, by the way. Like, if someone hasn't been able to do that, I had, and it's just simple things. Like, I had a guy come in the other day whose Raynaud's has resolved since he's been coming in to get it. Like, that happened on his like third or fourth visit. But, you know, I think the thing is, yeah, you've got to ask the right questions. You have to measure things to see things changing. I mean, we see, we measure stuff like posture in our practice. We do muscle function, range of motion testing, and a lot of the time people might not necessarily be feeling better, but their function is completely changing. And ironically, we don't get to choose what the body heals first. So for some people, their digestive system might be the thing that improves first. If you haven't asked the right questions, then you won't know. And I think I remember, Stu Bittman talks about this quite a lot, is that, he had a guy that came in with shoulder pain, and this guy just kept going, when's my shoulder going to get better? When's my shoulder going to get better? When's my shoulder going to, and it just wasn't changing. And, he asked the guy, look, since you've been here, have you seen any changes? He's like, no. And ironically, Stu said that he had this kind of inkling to ask his daughter. And he asked the daughter, have you noticed any changes in your dad? And the daughter said, no, he still complains about his shoulder all the time. But one thing that I have noticed in the last 6 weeks, my dad stopped hitting me.
Hmm.
Yeah. So the thing is that those changes that you see with people, like, they might not even notice them, but someone else might. And
Yeah.
it was interesting. I had a case like that. We had a guy that came to see me years and years ago, and he was like wound up, like so highly strung. And within 6 weeks, he became one of the nicest people coming into my office. And I asked, because his wife came to see me, and I was like, oh, how's your marriage? And she was like, oh, honestly, you have no idea. It's like, I've got a new husband at the moment. He's so nice at the moment. And I was
That's
like, oh, that's really interesting. What's changed in the last 6 weeks? And she's like, I just don't know. He's just so much nicer. And I was like,
can't possibly be.
you know,
What's
he has changed one thing in the last 6 weeks. So the thing is, and I'll be honest, you're not always going to spot the miracle. There are going to be things that you're not going to see.
I certainly think from our front desk perspective, and also from the chiropractors, the kind of clients that we really struggle with is those clients that come in very angry at the start and they really don't want to be there. I'm
Hmm.
sure you've experienced those ones, and it's almost like,
Yeah.
well, why are you here then? What would you
Yeah.
do with that kind of person? So say if we role play this, I'm coming into Complete Health in Eastbourne, and I'm grumpy, I'm like tired, I'm in pain, I don't want to be here. I'm being quite, slightly verbally aggressive with your team. How would you approach that? What'd you say?
Yeah. So a solid question. I mean, you're always going to get them, but that person's there for a reason. They're always everyone that's in front of you is there for a reason. Whether their partner has put you there or put them there, or whether they've come on their own accord. I think what you have to really do, in my experience with anyone coming in, some people will say this is really unethical. You have to really drive the knife into the side. You have to make the problem big to them. Because a lot of people that are hostile and resistant, you ask enough questions, they will they will start bringing their barriers down. And there's a technique called Socratic reasoning, and it's just asking them the question. So, in your honest opinion, why do you think this is starting? And what have you tried so far? Oh, it's interesting. So you've tried this, you've tried this. So you've essentially tried everything. Have you tried this? Yes, I've tried this. Okay, so how many different types of X have you tried? Oh, the more questions you ask, the easier it is to break those barriers down.
Hmm. Yeah, and what you're doing there is you're almost coming to their level, you're trying to get them to give you the answers initially, and if they don't have the answer, then you provide the solution.
Absolutely.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's a skill in itself. By the way,
absolutely.
you do that with other business owners as well, because 9 times out of 10, they know where they're up in their business. It's not just a patient thing, it's a people thing. And ironically, the same skills that are valuable in taking a patient history are the same things that are important in evaluating someone else's business.
Yeah, I've certainly found that too. Usually they know what the pain points are. They're just usually either they don't have the skill set to make it happen, they're not brave enough to do the hard thing. Like, for example, like this podcast, it takes time to prep. People don't realize, you've got to get the tech set up, you've got to arrange a date. We planned the date for this podcast like 2 months ago, just to try and get a date and time that works. If people are
And we
leading
still had
busy,
tech issues on the way in.
and we still have tech issues, but we're here and we're making it work.
Yeah,
And
dude.
but you've got to do the hard things. So in order to be successful, and you can define success however you like, you've got to do the hard things that other people aren't prepared to do. So when people come up to our business and they ask us, "Can you coach me?" I say, "Well, what do you need coaching on? What's the thing that you're not doing now that you probably should be doing?" So people know, like the patients, they know that they should probably be walking or eating better, but they just don't do it. But sometimes they just need that push. So you can take a horse to water, but you can't teach them to drink sometimes.
But when you make them pay to drink in the hole, they're more likely to do it, and they're going to suck up as much as they can. Because the ironic thing is, most of us can do the things that we do or that we should do without a coach. But ironically, there's something about investing in yourself that makes you more serious. Like I've just started with a PT. I'm paying a PT. I go to the gym 5, 6 days a week. I eat good nutrition. But the fact that I know that I've got someone watching me every day of the week now, making sure that all my macros are on point, the reality is I'm going to stick to that harder. And it's £150 investment for me a month to make sure I am being healthy and I'm not cheating as much.
What's it worth to you? How important is it for you to have a healthy lifestyle? The most important thing?
£150 worth.
Is it more important for you to see a PT and, have a great healthy life? Or is it more important for you to spend £150 on going on a night out drinking? You don't have to answer
Yeah,
that one.
my PT won't let me anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But like, it's all about like people do have, most people have excess income to spend. I'm not being out of touch here, but most people do have excess income to spend, especially if you're living in the UK. We're very fortunate here that you do have some excess income. Now, how you spend that income is completely up to you. You could rent a really expensive property and not be able to use that money for other things like a PT or, focusing on your health, or you could go for the luxury rental. It's all context. It's all about how you distribute that funding and what are your values, what's most important to you.
It's
Yeah. So Patrick, you started off as a clinician. So you graduated, we graduated from the same university. A lot has changed with that university now, without going into the politics too much. What was the transition for you? So you started working as an associate, and then at one point you wanted to be a business leader.
yeah.
So why did you step into ownership and leadership rather than just staying as an associate?
Profanity alert. I'm a shit employee. So I worked as an associate. Ironically, I worked as an associate when I first came out of school in the clinic that I now run. I was there for about 6 months, and the business owner was, I'm not going to say he's a bad business owner. Like he understood numbers, he understood profit margins, he understood cash flow. What he didn't understand was marketing. And so he had some streams of marketing, but they were relatively low quality leads. And he had one, and we know that in business, the worst number is one. He had one source of good quality clients, which was a newspaper ad, in the free paper that was bringing in, 5 to 10 new patients a week initially. And then all of a sudden that paper went bust and there was no advertising anymore. And so there's a new grad earning £300 a month. And I was like, dude, I can't work on 5 patients a week. This doesn't work. Like seeing 3 new patients in a week, you can coach me to the high heavens. You are not going to grow a practice fast on 3 new patients a week. It's achievable unless you're seeing that person 10 times a week, which nobody's going to do. And so I worked in an open plan practice. I took over a patient base in Brighton. I worked with Karen and Richard McMinn, who were both part of the UCA. Richard McMinn was on the board. And then they sold the practice to Rob and Melissa Sanford, again, both on the UCA board. And it was good for the experience. Richard was great as an employer, but had got to a point in his career that he wasn't that interested in coaching, and matched me up with a coach that she was good, but she wasn't my coach. If you get what I mean by that. So she just wasn't the character for me. Our energies didn't really match. And the other thing that I had is that she kept giving me all this advice of what to do. And then when I would take it back to the business owners, like, oh yeah, we don't really want to do that. And I was like, well, but the thing is, you want me to coach with someone, you want me to grow the practice, you want me to bring in more new patients, but you don't want me to do any of the things that she's telling me to do that would bring in more new patients. So, my hands are tied here. And then ironically, the practice that I was working in previously, the guy was tired of working in Eastbourne and he wanted to go back to working in Brighton, Hove, and East Grinstead. And he was like, I don't want to run this practice anymore. Do you want to take over it? Initially I franchised the practice, and then, I've had a buyout clause, and, and we took that practice from seeing about 70 chiro visits a week. We're now at probably nearly 320 to 350 chiro visits a week now. With me seeing the majority of that, my associate is kind of teetering between 90 and 100, and me doing anywhere from 180, 190 to 250.
Hang on, stop that. You're like 350. I'm doing the majority of that. But I think that sometimes we're on this we're all on this journey in life, this journey to success or achieving our goals. But you've just said that in passing, I'd see the majority of that 350. How does someone go from 0 to 350?
Yeah.
What's the
So,
secret, Patrick? How do you do that?
so Yeah, do you know what? It's been a slow burn, and it's one of those really funny things. Like, I went through areas of very intensively measuring, and it's really weird. Like, when I'm really overcritical with measuring myself, and I measure all the time, my my progress actually slows down. It's weird. So when I'm measuring hard on myself, um, I tend to see less conversions. It's weird.
That's interesting,
As
isn't
soon
it?
as yeah,
Mm.
because statistically, if you measure and report on yourself, you're more likely to grow. But who was I reporting to? I was, who was I reporting to? I was reporting to myself. So all I was being was hypercritical of myself. And ironically, in periods of time where I stopped measuring, and then I went back and I was like, oh, I wonder how I've been getting on over the last 6 months, were the areas that I actually increased the most. So when I took the pressure off of myself, interesting for me, that's when I saw the biggest increases. And it's just been one of those things that kind of every 6 months, I've probably seen an extra kind of 20 to 30 customers coming in consistently each week. So it wasn't like overnight. So I've been working in the practice that I've been in for 7 years now. So seeing 230 a week consistently is quite simple. The other thing is as well is I freaking market hard. So we have a consistent heavy flow of new customers. Now, the problem I've had, I ran into this issue probably about 2 years ago, and I really struggled to get an associate. And then ironically, in the last year, I've had like 4 apply, and we've taken on 2 of those 4 just because I thought 2 of them were good fits for the practice. Um, and all of a sudden, like, we've got the same number of new customer acquisitions, but we've got more visits coming through the practice. So we had to change space. My coach Ryan talks about this a lot. Is that the universe hates an empty void. So we had the issue is that I was working one across, and because I was working run across, I was blocking myself heavy. The other thing that was happening, if customers turned up late, it was making me run late. So booking appointments one across all day was just the bottleneck in my
One
business. It
across
just
means 1 in 15 minutes, right?
one, no, 1 in 10, dude. I've never
1
done
in
15
10.
minute
Okay.
appointments.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So different people will class that differently. So that's 1 across
yeah.
for you is 1 in person in 10 minutes.
Yes. And
Okay.
all I did was change flow, and we did 2 in 15. So I saved myself 25% time. That was it, 25%. It actually saved me, when I calculated it, over 200 visits a week that works out at 400 minutes, which is what's that, 6 and a bit hours. It's a whole shift. I dropped a whole shift and I see the same number of people and work 6 hours less a week.
And the interesting thing is, were the patient results the same?
Yes, exactly the same.
Did you get any complaints because you cut down your time, or were people happier?
Very few complained about being seen in another room next to someone, but we have 2 rooms, so I can jump between rooms. So I don't have to see someone in the open space. I can still see 2 across and just go across the hallway. My staff just have to knock on the door and say, "Hey, just to let you know, the other person's in the other room." So I can still run that flow exactly the same, and I can still have like different spaces and stuff if I need to. But the only thing that we changed, right? This is it. Like, rather than me walking to the door and walking them in and waiting for them to take their shoes off, they take their shoes off outside of the room. They empty all their pockets into a basket. They bring the basket into the room. They leave the shoes outside the room. When they leave the appointment, they pick up their basket and they walk out the room. And so it just took the fluff. It was fluff. I haven't changed my adjustment. My adjustment, like, the thing is if someone came in and took their shoes off and emptied their pockets and then filled them back up again and put their shoes on, that was like a minute and a half, even up to 2 minutes on either side of the appointment. So I still had the person on the table for like 6 minutes. It was no different. So it hasn't changed how I actually work within a session.
Yeah.
It's just changed the flow. So people just come and lie themselves down. I actually get clients come in and go, "Oh, you mean there are clinics where you don't get to lie down before your appointment? That sucks." So some people love it.
I'm in two minds with this. It's like we talk about in our clinic. It's like, how can we still get the same results for the patients but less time with the chiropractor? So it's more like more time in the clinic but less time with the chiropractor on the bench.
Yeah.
So a concept like that where you can save a minute just by shoes, or because you can't really do a proper chiropractic adjustment with someone wearing shoes. You just can't do.
Or adjoining rooms. Javier is over in Spain, 350 a week doc. I think he works like 3 days a week in practice. Super high volume. He's got 4 rooms. They're all adjoined. You just go bump, 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 and you just walk around from one to the other. Patient is in the room ready for him. He literally goes in, boom, does his adjustment.
Probably the is it
Super
probably
nice
the
to see
busiest
you.
it's probably the busiest chiropractor in Spain, Javier.
Probably other than Mark Hudson.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Javier wouldn't mind me saying, but I have coached him in the past. To really, he had some barriers that we need to unlock. And like he's so coachable, and I think that means that's allowed him to create such success. So you've got to be coachable, like you said with the practice that you were working in. You're like, I've got all these ideas to create new patients, but you don't want to implement them. So what do you want me to do here? So, but if you've got someone that's coachable, for me, like, that's my favorite type of clients, is someone that's like, I know you've got the solution. Just tell me what I need to do and I'll implement. Great. We're going to work really well together. Um, so Patrick, let's talk about associates.
Yeah.
Now, you said you've got new associates starting. Are these new grads, right?
So I've got one new grad coming.
Okay.
I've had a previous associate that was only out of school for a year, and I've had a previous associate that's been out of school for 2 years. And my current associate I've got working with me now has actually technically got more experience than me. He's been in practice for 13 years. So I've had a mixture of both experienced and inexperienced associates. Current one is definitely a little bit more work, but I the thing I like about it, he's a very blank canvas.
So he's moldable. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. So, and he's very willing to learn, and he's been super easy to put onto coaching calls every week. We're working through his day one, day twos, just making sure that they're super good. And then when he comes into the practice, we'll work on his technique and how he can kind of show people pre-post results, so that people kind of feel like they're actually seeing something change within practice. It's one of the things that I love the most about the way that I practice. So we use like a kinesiology type muscle testing, movement testing with people, so that they can actually see a change within each session. And then we use stuff like posture screening to be able to show people like longer term changes. So
Yeah.
we like having those variables that people can actually see, so that even if they're 3 or 4 sessions in, they're like, oh, there's no change. It's like, yeah, but can you see how much more muscle activation we're seeing, how much more
The
stability
outcome
there is there?
measures.
Yeah,
Outcome
makes
measures
things
are
so much
so
more easy to communicate.
so
So
much.
those are the kinds of things that you have to teach them.
Yeah. Yeah. Outcome measures. We talk about that a lot with in our clinic in Christchurch. We talk about outcome measures. Even last week's training is like, what outcome measures is everyone using? Let's try and get this cohesive. So like one chiropractor doing the same as another one.
Yeah,
Yeah, big ones for us is like weight distribution, posture
yeah,
scans. We have
yeah,
X-rays as well, but things you can do before and after posture scan is great for that.
yeah.
Um, and then like we've looked at things like blood pressure, spirometry,
Mm.
the grip strength. There's loads you can do, but it's also like working out what's the most efficient thing to do for that particular client. Now, in terms of confidence, so you've got these new guys starting and you've coached other associates in the past as well. So one of my mentors is Alex Hormozy, and he always says you don't get confidence before the reps, you get it after the reps. Did it feel like that for you? Or did you have a particular mentor or moment that gave you that confidence breakthrough? Or was it just about like going through those adjustments and then getting really efficient over time?
I think I've always been confident. My issue is I wasn't skilled enough. That was the issue. I was always confident that we could make a change, um, but I wasn't skilled enough in communicating that to people how that was going to happen. So that's
Communication
where
is
that's where
key. Yeah.
yeah, that was where my biggest weakness was coming from school, is that they taught you skill. I thought I was a good adjuster coming out of school. Like, it's when I compared myself to other people that were adjusting coming out of school, like, I could adjust people a lot better than what I saw other people. What I realized is there was huge gaps in types of adjustments that were not taught at school that I had to then go on to learn, like lifts and different direction of cervical adjusting, and very specific like sacral and upper cervical and cranial and visceral and all the other stuff where you could find it. But my toolbox, I didn't think was most lacking, and I think this is probably key to most associates coming out of school. Their toolbox is not most lacking in their skill to adjust or treat. Their skill is lacking most in being able to make that relatable to the client,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to language that we use, because we have been indoctrinated to use jargon for 5 years and answer things in jargon terms, which the tutors understand, we as the students understand. But when you sit in front of someone who has never seen a chiropractor or a physio or anyone in their life, and you use the word scapula, that guy has just gone,
I
don't
switch
have a
off.
freaking clue what this guy is talking about. Let's just hope his hands speak louder than his mouth.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that. I think as new grads, new associates, they think that the adjusting is going to be the problem, but it's not that. That does come with putting in the reps and, going to the courses. I know you've done loads of courses. I don't know any chiropractor that's done more clinical courses than you have. So
Sure.
yeah,
Out there.
say if you're listening to this and you want advice about what technique courses you should do, or
Yeah.
communication courses, Patrick is your guy for that for sure. Um, so if you were to start all over again, if you were to start all over tomorrow, and say you were a new grad, what would you have done differently? What advice would you have given to your younger self?
Coach earlier. Definitely coach earlier. Um, I probably would have set up my own business sooner. Probably would have hired faster.
Hired faster, because I was always taught from my mentors, hire slow but fire fast. I mean, firing's not a nice thing to have to do, but sometimes it's essential for the respect
Yes.
of your team and respect for yourself and your own values,
Yes.
your core
When I
values.
say hire faster, I mean
Yeah,
grow the team quicker. Not
that's
necessarily just get the first person through the door and have them in.
yeah,
But what I mean, yeah, and you can still go through a really thorough and robust interview plan, but I would have wanted that marketer faster. I would have wanted that front desk faster. I would have wanted that recall person faster. I would have wanted that coach faster. I would have wanted that tech guy faster. Because the reality is that by the time you realize you need it, it's too late. now you've got to wait 3 months to onboard and train someone. Whereas if you'd have done it when you kind of think, oh, we might need this in 3 months, by the time you get 3 months and you need them, then they're just about starting. It's the same again with the associate. Like now, coming in September, we're just getting the other guy to 100 a week, which is kind of where he wanted to get to. And the reality is if he's at 100 a week, then we can start looking at integrating and increasing the other guy. And I can actually take a bit more of a back seat and not work as much.
Absolutely. And I mean, it depends on what you want to do, because I know you're so full on with your adjusting, and you manage the business at the same time. But I often find when I coach clients is that if you're trying to wear all the hats in your business, trying to be the operator by adjusting, trying to run the business, trying to do the marketing, if you're also trying to balance family life, that's a very hard thing to juggle. And what happens if you're wearing all those hats, the hats start falling off, and then you're wearing the hat here for so long, and then that hat starts falling off, and it's almost like you're spinning plates, and they're all, one will crash down if you don't work on this one, and then that will always suffer because of that. It's always a balance, isn't it? And I think the time, for me, like time is one of my major values, is I need to prioritize my time to the things that really make an impact to the values in my life.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Stephen Bartlett talks about the power of messy, imperfect action. So you were saying like you wish you would have hired faster. You wish you would have got that marketing person faster, that associate
Yeah,
faster. So he talks
yeah,
about the power of messy, imperfect action,
yeah.
getting moving instead of getting it all perfect. So if you had to start
Freaking
today,
master right here.
so if you had to start today, what would your version of messy action look like? So say you were opening a clinic tomorrow, what would be the first things you would do off the bat?
Screenings, 110%.
Screenings. Yeah.
Yeah, screenings, 110%. Um, I would run 6 different Facebook ads in the first 6 weeks. I would go internal screening, external screening. So we would do them in house, we do them out of house. I would want at least 2 to 3 talks in the first 6 weeks. I would probably want to do a new patient acquisition. I would want a website where there's new patient acquisition and online bookings and payments set up straight from the word go. And we probably funnel from Facebook to stuff like that. Um, I would integrate AI straight away with that, especially if I didn't have the team to support it, because you can offload a lot of that. And we're just about starting to integrate that into our practice now as well. And every new customer that came in, I would probably give them a voucher.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, that is going to definitely help with new patient acquisition for sure. And the AI side of things, that will take away a lot of the grunt work and makes things ever so much more productive. And that's something that we're looking at within clinic scale. There's something on the horizon which we haven't announced yet, but we are looking at which currently being built and trialed in our clinic. But we are looking to implement something massive with AI that's going to revolutionize clinics. You have to stay tuned to find out more about that one.
Woo!
Yeah,
Product drop. Woo!
a little drop there. So you would do all of those things. And do you know what I found really interesting? That you said screenings. I've spoken about screenings since day one we opened our practice. I mean, lots of people know this. We opened our clinic with
Yeah,
300 new patients,
yeah,
300
yeah.
before opening the
Opening the
doors.
door. Yeah,
Had 300 people booked, lined up, ready to go. We were fully booked for 2 months. And it was me, my wife, Ofra, and two of our associates, Alex and Brandon. And it was relentless, and we just hit the ground running. I mean, so for me, like it was a big risk, right? Also, starting with two associates is a big risk, but like that's what it's all about, right? But if you are confident in your marketing and you know how to generate new patients, then really the sky's
there's
the
no
limit.
risk.
Now it's about, okay, the quality of that patient, are they ready? So you start off with a lead. So this is the journey. You start off with a lead, and then you'll nurture that lead. You'll put them through some kind of funnel, and then you really want those hot leads. So they really warm them up to the point where they're hot and they're ready to buy. They're raving fans. And they're ready to buy. That's where we're at now with our thinking. It's not just about, as you know, it's not just about the cheap leads. There's lots of marketing agencies out there that you'll be like, oh, you pay the ad spend, we'll get you guaranteed 20 to 30 new patients. I get an email every single week about this.
Okay.
But I don't want cheap leads. The diary time is very precious. You don't want to just fill the diary with people that are not ready to use chiropractic. You want to nurture them over time, right? What would you say
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. I think when you've got completely empty space, you can afford to have the lower quality leads. So if you've got, especially when you've got a new grad and you need them, like you said, you've got to get the reps. Fucking lower quality leads is fine. And especially like, you look at so when you started your practice, those 300 leads, right? What was your average cost per lead?
300 new patients. So they were booked and paid in
Yes.
advance.
Yeah.
All it cost us is what it cost us to show up to those events that we booked in for.
So, I mean, like for
The
me, a
events
lot of the
make a
time,
difference. The events make a difference. I mean, obviously, we were speaking about this before our podcast, about the importance of choosing the right events.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
something that we have in our screening guides that we put out on our Facebook group. But you said that to me. You said, Andy, after I saw what you wrote about events and the right type of event, and you messaged me,
Yeah.
you said,
Yeah. And I was shocked with how much it costs because the reality is, right. So when you look at a new patient, we just paid 450 for it's a 4-day event. It's like £100 a day. We get a local discount, 25% from the council because we're a local business and they want to drive local businesses up. It's one of the biggest, and we get a lot of people travel into the area for this event, but it's like one of the biggest events in Eastbourne, which is one of our air shows. So if the weather's good, there are going to be thousands of people on that seafront. you know, 450 a day, that's two new patients per day to have covered the cost of the stall. And only one of those needs to convert before we're in a profit margin,
and that is the
just for
kind
the
of
day.
thinking you need as a business owner. But, if you're coming out of university and starting a new clinic, do you have £450 to spend? Or actually, do you sometimes need to invest to make money in a clinic?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reality is if you're going to start setting up a clinic, if you're going to be setting up a clinic, the reality is either you're going to have some funding you're going to be putting in yourself, or you're going to be getting a loan. So one of the two ways, if you're setting up a clinic, one of your costs needs to be factored in is how you're going to grow that baby.
Yeah. So and we were talking about this in our recent quarterly. We had a quarterly yesterday. We were talking about like, should we even have a marketing budget? If we know what our return on investment is for a source and we know how they convert and we know what we need to pay the associates for, is there any point in having a marketing budget?
Yeah.
Surely, like,
No.
if you put £450 into an event and the clinic is going to make £45,000, surely it's a no-brainer to do as many events as possible if you can
No.
fulfill that with your team and you're getting the right
Absolutely.
type of patients, right?
And especially when you're growing a team, like every time you add a new associate, you go, okay, so realistically, this person's going to bring in X thousand a month. That means that we can afford to pay an X number of hundred a week to increase that that avenue source. So this is one of the things with associates. I pay my associates on a sliding scale. So as they're growing and I'm having to dump more money into marketing for them, they're on a lower percentage. As they grow into a thriving practitioner and they start exceeding certain figures, they get paid the same as everyone else. But what I always remind them, in order to get them to that point, I have to spend the money to get them there. So I'm not profiting by the fact that I'm paying them less. I'm reinvesting the money that they're basically paying to me to be able to grow that business.
Absolutely. And that's a mindset that as long as you explain that to them, and I've had that conversation with my associates, they're like, well, why can't you just give me a high percentage? I was like, if I give you a high percentage, all that's going to do is take away from what we invest into the clinic. So what would you rather, less new patients and slightly more money? Or you'd rather the new patients to have a higher earnings in the long run?
I was
So it's
going to
just a
say they're
mindset.
not going to get more money because
Yeah.
the thing is 50% of nothing is nothing. Whereas 45% of 100 people a week is a lot freaking more.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I totally get it. So you're right. 50% of nothing is nothing. And that is why we do sliding scales in our clinics. At lower percentages, but you'll get a ton of new patients and you'll be extremely busy. And what could be more fulfilling than that to serve that many people? I mean, our chiropractors are doing, most of them are doing easily 100 plus. We've got some pushing 150, but no one is doing 250 like you are. Kudos to you. Hopefully your associates will do the same, but no one cares more about your business than you do. So I'd love to see an associate do those kind of numbers. That would be awesome. Patrick, we're running out of time. I think this is going to come onto an episode 2,
Yeah.
and maybe that will be in person. Maybe it will be online, but we'll see. I've got one final bonus question to wrap this all up. We're going to end on a bit of a fun note. We mentioned about the colleges, the universities. There's been a lot of changes. We'll ask you this question. If you could put a message on a billboard outside every chiropractic college tomorrow, what would it say?
That's a good one. Don't believe what they tell you at school. It's much better outside. I just think that we have this super watered down message at chiropractic schools now, and I think people need to know that they can better lives more than what they're told. Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of leave a bit, they kind of make you leave a little bit scared almost about what we do. They make sure you're
Absolutely.
safe, and I think that's a great thing that they do is you make sure you are safe to a certain extent, almost to too far
Too
to the
much.
fact
Yeah.
you're like you're not even adjusting anyone anymore. So you know what? Are we even chiropractors if we're not adjusting?
Yeah. So I would say,
Chiropractic means done by hand. You know, if we're not using our hands to adjust, what are we doing?
yeah, I would say, don't believe what they tell you. Trust in chiropractic will serve you.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that, Patrick. Really appreciate it. Um, So I really like asking that question to people because what it does is it kind of forces us to distill years of lessons and pain that we've had to experience into one line.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you could leave that sort of one punchy piece of advice for the next generation of chiropractors, that's what it would be. Yeah.
Yeah. Certainty comes with time and comes with, like you say, comes with those reps. Comes with the reps. Believe in what you know and know what you believe.
Absolutely. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great
Pleasure.
having you here today. Um, What I love about you, and I think what our listeners will really feel today, is your commitment to both mastery and leadership. You've built a clinic that doesn't just function, but it truly serves your community, your team, and your ultimate vision and your mission. So, consistent action, leading by example, staying clear on your mission is exactly what our profession needs more of. So, for everyone that's listening, let's take these lessons and run with them. Whether you're an associate wondering how to set up or an owner stuck in the day to day and you're not sure how to scale, remember it's that consistent, simple actions compounded over time that builds that freedom and that impact. So, Patrick, are you looking for associates right now?
I mean, we're always happy to have people come in. I love having people observe. I have people observe all the time. Whether they come in to stay or not is completely up to them. But I just like showing people what we do.
Absolutely. I mean, if you haven't observed Patrick already, I definitely recommend it. He's got a beautiful clinic in Eastbourne. And what we'll do is we'll leave a link to contact Patrick at the bottom of the
Nice.
show notes. And if you want to go deeper into strategies like the ones we've discussed today, like external spinal screenings, using AI for your clinic, or even just where do I start? Please join our Clinic Scale community group on Facebook. So just type in Clinic Scale community. There's a couple of questions, a couple of rules that we require you to follow. And soon we're going to be launching some Zoom calls that you'll be able to join to. Links for these are all in the show notes. Patrick, thanks again for joining us. Mate, you've inspired me today, and I know you've inspired a ton of people listening. So I appreciate you, and I'll see you soon.
And guys, make sure you have fun. Don't make practice too serious. Enjoy yourselves.
Absolutely. Enjoy the journey, right?
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks. Take care.